may the words that I speak and the meditations in our heart be acceptable in your sight, and may you move here by the power of your Holy Spirit to touch our hearts and lives and bring you glory. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
I'm going to assume it's okay to tell this story. It's been about 15 years maybe, and it was not in this town. It was in a different town. And I'm going to use different names too, so hopefully it's going to be okay. I think it's fine. Sally, we'll say, it's her name, came up to me at church and shared with me that her family was broken. She was had been estranged from her sister and brother-in-law for nearly a decade, and they lived in the same town. She shared with me that she had been over at her sister's house once, and that her brother-in-law Ed had gotten angry with her and told her to leave and never come back, and not to call her sister anymore. So it had been like 10 years since she had any contact with her own sister. Let that sit a minute. Some of y'all may understand that, right? I mean, it happens. Well, one day at church, I knew that and had been praying for her and all that, and this had been going on while I was there for a number of years, right? So she finally came up to me one Sunday at church, and she said, Ed had a heart attack last night. He's in the hospital in Lufkin. And she said, I would like for you to go with me to see him this afternoon. And I want you to go in there and ask him if I can come in. Because she's like, I need to be able to minister to my sister. I need to be able to be there for Ed. She said, I want to be there for them. But right now I can't. Because there was this elephant in the room. Y'all don't know anything about that, do you? I mean, there's this elephant in the room, right? So I go with her. I meet her at the hospital that afternoon, and she stands out in the hallway while I go in to this guy's hospital room, and Ed and his wife, Sally's sister, are in there, and I just walk up to the bed and say, Ed, somebody's here that wants to see you really badly, and I hope that you will let her speak her piece, that you will listen, and you will hear her. I said, is it okay if she comes in? And I told him who I was, so I'm sure he knew who it was outside, right? And he just nodded his head and said, yeah, it'll be okay. So I went back out in the hallway and told Sally. And the gates of hell would not have kept her out of that room. Do y'all know what I'm saying? I mean, she was in there. I'll finish the story in a little bit. For Sally, that message that she was bringing that day was urgent, right? I mean, it was a burden on her. It was something that she had to do. It's just something she had to do to try and bring peace to her family. Jesus has this message that's urgent at this point in time. Jesus' head is set like flint on Jerusalem and on going to the cross and paying the price for mine and your sins and for all of our sins once and for all. He knows it's coming. It's not a surprise that's going to just catch him, unaware. He knows what he's getting into. Remember, he is God. So he knows everything, and he knows what's coming. He has everything. It's already playing in his mind. He knows what is coming. And he's determined to go through with it. And he wants to lead these disciples into his plan. he's trying to pour himself into these folks in these last days before the cross, and he's trying to keep away from the crowds. He's trying to be incognito and just hang out with the 12, right? He's trying to really, because it's an urgent thing, because he knows he's going to be gone, and he knows that they're going to need to remember everything that he has taught them, and he wants to just pour himself into them. And he tells them that the Son of Man is going to be handed over to his enemies. He's going to be crucified, and he's going to rise on the third day. And you can imagine they're probably like, huh? You know, and then they're probably like, okay, so what do y'all want for dinner? You know, I mean, something like that. Like it's just over their head. It's more than they can comprehend, because this is the Messiah, right? I mean, this is the King of the Jews. He's going to set up his earthly kingdom in their minds in the way they figured it out. He's going to, you know, help Israel overthrow Rome, right? I mean, this is the Son of David, right? So he's going to, but that's not what's going to happen. It's going to be a spiritual kingdom he's going to set up. So they don't get it. And they're afraid, they're terrified to get him to ask him any questions about it. They just can't, you know, bring themselves to it, because it's so far beyond them. I remember caught red-handed. Have y'all ever been caught red-handed? Something, yeah. I remember one summer when I was in school, college, I worked one summer for the U.S. Forest Service. There near Andalusia, Alabama, and I worked with a crew of guys, you know, mark timber and cruise timber and all that sort of thing. And we had one of those old club cab pickup trucks, work trucks, you know, and there was 5 of us in that truck. And I was new, I was green, and I was trying, you know, I was 22, 23, something like that. I was trying to impress these guys. And one of them's name, the guy that was driving was a young guy. He's probably 30 at the time. Really old, you know, at that one time. Anyway, he asked me, said, "Do you know Trent Lewis?" And as so happened, Trent Lewis was our county commissioner at that point in time that lived just around, you know, 2 or 3 blocks from where I lived at there in town and all that. And I knew Trent Lewis. Lord have mercy, did I know Trent Lewis? And he had a reputation. You know, I mean, he had, you know, kind of was, well, let's say, anyway, back in that day, he played both sides of the fence, if you understand what I'm saying. And he was different, you know, and he was well known for this. And this was at a day at a time when, you know, that was different, okay? So I went off, boom. I just burned him to the ground right there. And I was in the back seat of the truck, you know, and he was driving. And I went on for probably 5 minutes about this guy and what I knew about him. And I mean, I unpacked everything I'd ever heard anybody even utter about him. All derogatory, right? And then finally, when I finished up, I said, "Why? Do you know Trent Lewis?" And in that instant, I was like, oops, I messed. Stuck my foot in my mouth. And he said, "That's my uncle." And lo and behold, his last name was Lewis. And I thought, boy, if you ever opened your mouth and inserted foot, I was gagging on my foot. I was like, come to find out it wasn't really his uncle. He was just messing with me. But boy, did that, I mean, I was like, ooh, okay. It kind of taught me a lesson. I learned something that day, to be careful what you say, you know, because, you know, it can come back to haunt you. So Jesus is with these guys, and they're, you know, and they're having their little, these disciples are having their little conversation, you know, behind his back on the way to Capernaum and all that. And he knows what they're talking about, right? I mean, remember, this is the Lord, the God of heaven and earth, and all right. And so he says, so what were y'all talking about on the way? And they're like, you could hear crickets chirping, you know, just like you could in that truck that day when I was found out that it might be that guy's uncle I was talking about. There's nothing. It's dead silent, you know. They're like, they won't say, but Jesus already knows. He's read their mail. He knows what's going on. And it's not a shock to him, right? So he goes on, and he kind of fills in the blank there that they didn't fill in. So if you want to be the greatest, because that's what they were talking about, which one of them is going to be the greatest, right? I'm going to be sitting there with Jesus on his, you know, next to his throne. I'm going to be his right-hand man, you know. I got his back, you know, all that. Yeah, right. The greatest is going to be the servant of all. Oh, wait a minute. I mean, he throws this on them that is just not what they're expecting, right? I can remember, you know, I'm 60 years old, and I've been a lay person for most of that period of time. I've only been a preacher for 18 years. So most of that period of time, I've been a lay person, and I was in and out of the church, and in and out of different churches. And I'm going to tell y'all a few things that I've seen that left an impression on me over the years. And I can remember being in the Livingston church. Now, I'm not a preacher yet. I'm a lay person. And they have, you know, it's a large church. And they have an active Sunday school department. They have multiple Sunday school classes for all ages and all that sort of thing. And they have a Sunday school superintendent that goes around and collects their little offering and gets their attendance read, you know, for the week and all that sort of thing. Well, that person was out this Sunday, and it fell on me somehow to fill in and go around to different Sunday school rooms and pick up their offering and get their attendance, because somebody was keeping up with that somewhere, you know, and turn that in. And I can't remember the other classes, but I remember going to the 2- and 3-year-old Sunday school class and bumping on the door and opening the door, and there in the floor with a host of 2- and 3-year-old kids, you know, they're all coloring, have their coloring pages out on the floor, and there was Leon Bailey, 70-year-old guy. He's their teacher. I didn't know that before that. I walked in, and there he was in the floor, coloring pages with these kids. And I thought, wow, that's impressive. Now, Leon had been teaching me how to help cook for the Methodist men on Friday mornings. Every Friday morning, he was there at 5 o'clock and started to cook. I mean, we'd have 40 plus men on every Friday morning. It started at 7 o'clock. So I'd get there. I wasn't that good. I'd get there sometime before 6 o'clock, and I'd start cooking the meat and all that kind of thing. But Leon had never said a word to me about that, and I'd been helping him for a couple of years at that point, every week, and I never knew that he was the 2- and 3-year-old Sunday school teacher. But that was impressive to me, to see a 70-year-old guy, and come to find out later, he would say, "Those are my kids. You know, they're all my kids." And I don't know, he's 90 now. He's the same age as my mom would have been. He's 90 years old. And as far as I know, now he's probably not still teaching them, but I would not have wanted to be there the day the conversation was had that you need to give up your Sunday school class, or maybe he did it willingly, but that would have been very difficult for him. But that was impressive, y'all. Maybe y'all will think of some things. So to be great in God's eyes, means to reach out to the little ones. Now, I kind of think Jesus may not be talking about just specifically kids here. By the way, if any of y'all have been teaching or had safe sanctuary training or anything like that, Jesus must have missed that somehow, because he grabs this kid and holds this kid in his arms. You're not supposed to do that. Right? I mean, as adults now, that's frowned upon, right? To really grab a kid and hold them and embrace them and all that stuff. I mean, we ain't supposed to be doing that, because it's, somebody's liable to file charges on you or something, or see something more than what's really going on. Jesus doesn't care. Okay. He doesn't care. He's like, whoever receives, welcomes a little one like this on my behalf is actually welcoming me. And if you're welcoming me, you're welcoming my Father too. That's pretty cool stuff. But now, what are the couple of qualities about children that if we want to look at it, children are vulnerable, right? They're powerless, and they're in need. I mean, they need somebody to watch over them, to take care of them, to help them, right? So maybe that's what Jesus is trying to say. If you help one of these that's in need, that is powerless, that is vulnerable, for my sake, you're actually helping me. A couple other instances that I've seen, and this is when I was just starting to go to church again, in Crestview, Florida. First Methodist Church, Crestview, Florida. Go in there, and I'm mid-20s, 26, 27, and I saw something that was just astounded me. There was a young man, not much older than me, maybe 30. Every Sunday, he got the church bus, and he went to the local mental health, mental retardation facility in town, and he picked up a busload of those folks and brought them to church. And he sat there on the same pew with them every Sunday, that rain or shine. Now that's what I think Jesus is talking about. Right? I thought, wow, that's impressive. I mean, one other one I'll mention to you. There was my old best friend Murdoch, David Maddox, from Florella. His dad was an independent Baptist preacher named Clem Maddox. Now, he was hard shell now. I mean, you talk about, he was King James Bible, it was hellfire and brimstone, all that kind of stuff, and he was hard as nails. He was tough on Murdoch. I mean, really tough guy. There was a family in our little community, and I've lived a long time, but I have never run into another family like that in my days. There's no good way to say this. They were nasty. I mean, they were just nasty. They didn't bathe. They didn't wash their clothes. I mean, nobody wanted to be around them. It was a large family that lived in this old bungalow house that there might have been one speck of paint left on it. I mean, it was just raw boards on it. The screen doors were off of it. Chickens, dogs, cats came in and out at will with the kids. I mean, they stunk. If they walked in, you'd all know it. If you didn't see them, you'd smell them. I mean, I'm just being honest. That community, if you said it was all the derogatory thing to say to somebody or be said about you was, you're one of the Bryants, or you're like the Bryant. You know, I mean, it was a stigma on this family. They were the modern day lepers, if you will. Nobody wanted to be around them, period. And I had some of them in my class in school before they quit, got old enough to quit. They didn't work. I don't know how they got by, but Clem ended up getting one of them little old bobtail school buses, one of those for his little church. Grace Baptist Church on the side of the bus. And y'all seen those little short buses, right? And he'd go around, and you know what he did? He would go pick up those people that nobody else wanted in town. I mean, there was a mentally challenged man and his mama that lived two doors down from me. I saw him pick them up, and nobody wanted to have anything to do with them. Seriously. He would pull up there every Sunday morning and pick them up. He drove around near the high school and picked up the Bryants and took them to his church. Those things have left an impression on me. Some of y'all have left an impression on me too. Okay, back to Sally. Sally walked in that hospital room that day, and she walked right up to Ed's bed, and she apologized. And the tears streamed down her face. And she said, I'm sorry for all the pain I brought into your life. I hope you'll forgive me. I want to be here for you and for my sister, whose name I don't remember. But will you please forgive me? And he nodded his head yes. And I know for a fact that Sally took care of Ed and the sister the next several years until they both passed away. She was there for them. They needed her, right? But she also needed to be there for them. And pride and independent-headedness and all that had kind of gotten in the way, right? As it normally does. And at that point in time, their little argument that they had had 10 years before, did it really matter what it was about? Did it matter who was at fault, or if they're probably a little of both? I don't know. She never shared that. But does that help any at all, y'all? with being a servant of all? It's just, I think Jesus would have us want to just reach out to people that are powerless, that are helpless, that are in need. Now, there's a lot of people that say they're in need, I'll admit, up here, but they're kind of, we all have been taken for a ride, right? We've been abused and given to folks, and they turn around and go buy beer with it, or You know, we've all been down that road. I mean, Garrison Church paid somebody's light bill at the apartments there in Garrison one time, and next thing we knew, the neighbor said they went out and got a big flat screen TV and hung it on the wall within a week. So, I mean, we've done that. We've been there. I acknowledge that. But I will say, too, sometimes you have to go through those people to really get to those that are in need. And sometimes you may get your pocket picked on the way occasionally. But I'm going to say this. If you're not getting manipulated every now and then, you're probably not helping the people you need to. You know, you're probably being a little too conservative and worried too much about somebody taking advantage of you. It's okay. You know, if you gave it in the right heart and the right spirit, the Lord knows, right? And He's going to bless you for it. So sometimes we get caught up. We do try. I know I try, and we try to work with Love Inc. and folks like that really try to, you know, flesh out where people are getting their assistance from and all that. And it's overwhelming to try and figure it out. And you can't. I mean, none of us is able to really know 110% of the time what somebody's resources are. It's impossible. So you do it in good faith, and you trust and hope and pray. You research as much as you can, but then you gotta help. You know, you just gotta help people. And if they're manipulating you, that's on them. You know, it's not on us. And we'll do the best we can to figure it out. Just say it. Do y'all know what I'm talking about? Yeah. It happens. I've given money to those people at the gas pumps with a milk jug, you know, and seen them go jump in somebody's car and take off with their empty milk jug, and then seen them 2 days later back at the gas pumps again, you know, with that milk jug. I've seen it all, you know. I mean, y'all have too. I mean, it happens. But we can't let that keep us from trying to do what God would have us to do and trying to be there for those that are in need. I'm gonna say one more thing. Probably shouldn't. And you may feel differently about that, but just so you know where I'm at. We give a lot of money to Love Inc. from this church. We give $100 a month, I know, from this church. And they do a diligent job of trying to, you know, help research people's resources and all that stuff. I have a hard time when I see somebody at Walmart, you know, with a sign. I have a hard time with that because Lord knows you don't know where that money's going to go. I'm just going to say it. And one of the things that I'm told as a pastor, is not to ever give anybody cash money, because that's just the wrong thing to do. Now, having said that, I rode with Rudy Rasmus one time in his truck, pastor of St. John's United Methodist Church downtown Houston. A third of their congregation are homeless, right? And it pulls up there, and here's some homeless people at the stop sign, and he rolls down the window and he keeps a wad of ones in his pocket, and he hands them a couple of dollars, you know, and goes on. You know, I'm like, so I don't know, y'all. I'm not sure. I'm just saying, let the Lord lead you. But we have to be, God is imploring us to be people who welcome, receive, bless, help others in a way that's pleasing. Find a way that works for you and do it. I mean, do it. Don't be critical of one way or the other unless you're doing something. Can I say that? I mean, I think it's okay to say, if you're giving to Love Inc., you can criticize giving money to people on the street, right? I think it's okay, because you're doing something. But if you're not doing either one, don't say anything. Sorry, is that fair enough? Okay, all right, I'm going to shut up, and we're going to sing our closing hymn. Awfully intended, Jesus is calling.